Ashton, the king of the 105s, returns. And for the first time, we saw you at the World Championships. Um, First off, I mean, before we talk, we got a lot to talk about, but did the experience live up to what you wanted?
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, it was interesting because when I was um called out by Anatoly, of course, to travel and show up and to win and do all this stuff. I don't know, something about that just didn't sit right with me, and I would have felt um I would have felt like a coward if I sat that one out if I knew I could go. So I kind of made
Mm.
it happen where I was able to go, and at that point, all I had to do was execute and win. And I mean, competitively, it was good. It was fun. The standard, at the meet was strict, but I mean, to me, it didn't seem overly strict. At least while I was competing, it seemed fine. But yeah, I mean, overall, it was a lot of fun, and then the audience was a lot of fun too. They were really engaged, and you could tell a lot of them were emotionally invested in all of the sessions for one reason or another. So it was a good place to be overall.
Was the experience in terms of all the nations? I don't know how many of the sessions you saw. I can't remember. I know we talked about it, but did you stick around or did you see any sessions before you?
Oh yeah, I saw let me think. I saw the 74s, I saw the 83s, I saw the 93s as well actually, and some of the other female sessions as well. Yeah.
And what did you think about, like, my God, previously, people were saying the IPF World Championships is like, they were saying it was like way more like lifting in a library. Some people would say. Gavin would say it was like lifting in a library. I never thought that. It was never quite that. I think that was an exaggeration, but I don't think anybody's talking anything like that now. If you saw, I mean, it sounds like you might have missed the 66s, but the 83s, my God, when everybody started rumbling for that last deadlift and even everything before it, this world was crazy. Was that beyond your expectations?
No, it was. I mean, even the last time I had went to an IPF championship many, years ago versus now, it was definitely different in terms of the audience and how engaged they were. I mean, then, yeah, there was, some normal stuff. I mean, kind of, I think to your point, like I don't think it was ever literally a library, but it was a little bit more on the chill side
Yeah.
a lot of times. But as of lately, I mean, especially that one, no, it was definitely a lot more intense, and you could feel the energy. I mean, I was sitting in the room right when Jones hit that last deadlift, for example, and a lot of those folks were pretty excited about it.
That's that's for sure. I mean, there's a lot of that's the thing. Europe will rally behind almost any European lifter if it's down to a European lifter and an American, because America is so dominant. They're a dominant force, and a European going against them, all of a sudden it becomes let's go. And the sense of an upset about to happen in any sports too, like, oh my God, this is magic. Upsets so rarely happen in sports. That's why they're deemed upsets. You're upsetting the odds. And when you think, I think we're about to witness something no one foreseen, or very few people, anyways. And it totally made it a whole lot more exciting. When you're going to lift, though, afterwards, are you trying to conserve your energy and how excited you get? Because there's no way you could in 83s.
Oh yeah, no. Actually, yeah, so that's kind of what I did. One of the things I did while I was watching all those sessions was I kind of reined it in and reeled it in quite a bit, actually. And I was intentionally doing so that I wouldn't get, too excited throughout the week. I actually, even during the big lifts, I would just sit down, like I wouldn't stand up, and I would just watch it with a pretty straight up stoic face for like 99% of the lifts, even the exciting ones. Like internally I was excited, but I was like, let me not
Yeah.
get up and shout and hop around because I don't want to do too much right before the big day. But yeah, no, it was hard to not get excited. I certainly internally felt it, no doubt.
Did it like increase the anticipation for yourself too? That's the big thing is like, so I'm naturally an excitable guy. When people see me, or rather hear me on commentary, I'm not joking around here. Like, I for real am that into it. Hear me on the podcast, like I'm a passionate speaker, but I really am that dude. If I'm there and I see something like that, like those moments, I go back. If I was competing the next day and knew that this was going to be me, like not just an also ran either. Like you weren't just there. you were in the mix, the favorite, and you saw a favorite coming in what happened with Russ. And then obviously in the 93s, Petrie's a teammate of yours, not just on Team USA, but also under Marcellus. And, you see some upsets happening. I don't know if Petrie was necessarily not winning an upset because it's so close in 93s, flip a coin who wins. But does it make you unnerved? Does it increase anxiety for your own, what's about to happen with you when you're watching all this unfold, knowing you're next as a 105?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, after watching, all of the sessions that I did up to that point, the only thought I had in my day before competing was, you really can't mess this up, Ashton. That's what I kept telling myself, like, you cannot mess this up. You can't let this slip away. There's no reason that you should go into this and not come out and, win for whatever reason. Like, you've trained to standard, you've done everything to standard. Don't psych yourself out. The outcomes of these other sessions, this is sports, right? This happens, but you're different. You shouldn't lose at all. In this instance, at least.
Because at that point, America started strong on the men's side. 659, sorry, Wasker brings home the gold and qualifies for Sheffield. But after that, there was Perk, but a miss in the 66s, a miss in the 83s, a miss in the 93s. It was a losing average at that point. It was a losing record. And this is where, like, and you're going against Anatoly, no less, who's like a multiple time world champion, best lifter. When you were in the warm up room and you see Anatoly, you see the other 105s, at that point, is this when all doubt is gone? Is this when that the doubt is at the highest? Because I remember seeing Perk and he looked different. He came on the podcast. He said it felt different. I had, Perk's a very confident young man, and he opened up and said, like, I had doubt. I was nervous. It elevated me. It made me key in, but my God, man, he looked like he was going to go down to the cage and have a fist fight, let alone a powerlifting meet. He was ready for battle, and I think leading into Worlds, certain people have certain impressions, but once you're there and you see upsets happen and you start realizing anything can happen at World Championships, and then you look across and there's Anatoly and you know what he's done there. What was your vibe like when holy shit, it's about to happen?
Oh yeah. And as soon as I hit that first warm up for squat, that's usually what happens. As soon as I do that first warm up, like before I even, touch the platform for attempts, I automatically zone in and I'm just mission focused all the way through until I finish. And when it comes to when I have an objective in my mind and I've set all of my sights to accomplish, whatever task, or mission or whatever it is that's ahead of me, I steamroll everything in my way to get to done. And, once I hit that first squat, that's the mode I'm in from start to finish. And that's exactly what I was. And, I wasn't intimidated. I don't get intimidated. Not not by other people at least. And I knew that if I had done everything I was supposed to do, that I would walk away with the win. I knew it
Is
from that
he's
moment. That's why I probably looked a little more posed, I think, than even like Perkins, for example, because I know he was, really, I
keyed up.
think, yeah, right, and which is okay, you know, and internally I can feel that too, but I can do a really good job of not showing it externally too sometimes. But at this particular meet, I don't know, like I was not only was I supremely confident, but I just just deep down, I just knew what the outcome was going to be if I did what I needed to do. And
Is this
so
because is this because your previous numbers compared to Anatoly's previous numbers?
I think that plays into it. Um, that definitely plays into it. I mean, just the record I think speaks for itself. But even just beyond numbers, it's just the fact that I've been in so many, tight races and tight battles and have come out on top so many times that this time, didn't have to be different. And that I was more likely to continue the pattern versus break it, if that makes sense.
In terms of your previous battles, and you're battle tested, and especially as of late, we're talking whether it's Bob or a surprise when you went over to Korea and we're like, holy shit, who's this guy? And you get shocked and rattled by it, and you stepped up, and you could do that if you have to. This one you saw coming. This one was obviously heavily hyped, and you knew what the numbers were coming in. So if you had confidence based off that, and you should, it's like, all right, if we both do our previous bets, I win this. And you actually had some wiggle room to dip. But things got a little interesting. I don't know if you were paying attention during the day of where you were at, but Anatoly had a monster 370.5 world record squat. Finished a little ahead of you. Nothing too crazy. But then he also hit a 230 bench press.
Hmm.
And based off a subtotal, if he hit the deadlift that he could hit, if he hit, around three into the 350s, into whatever, if he started getting 355, whatever, if he had his deadlift there and was able to, if he kept pace on his deadlift like he had pace on his squat and actually improved upon, and this is what Anatoly's bringing, doing the math, and I don't have the math in front of me right now, but I remember doing the math and having people message me doing the math saying, holy shit, if Anatoly has this, Ashton is going to have to hit his personal best range. He'll need to go all out. And it won't be like you're loading your top end. Were you aware of just how close the battle was going into deadlifts after squats and bench?
Yeah, and honestly, that's what I planned and anticipated for. But I also knew watching him lift that he squatted very aggressively that meet, whereas I squatted very compared to nationals, especially in last year at least, I squatted very conservatively actually at that meet. So I intentionally did that, and I was okay with him having a lead on squats because I knew I was going to blow him out of the water on deadlifts. Like, I think people think that my top end would be like 380 to 385, but I can guarantee you on the day, if we put that on the bar, I would not have missed it. Like 385 would have happened. And of course, I've done more than that before as well, but that's, training. So that's kind of different. But at the same point in time, I was supremely confident. After I hit 365 the way I did, I was like, yeah, I could have hit another 20 to like 22 and a half, and it would have happened. And I knew that going into deadlifts too. As soon as I hit my first 2 or 3 warm-ups, I'm like, yeah, if I need to hit 860 or 850, I could do it today. It wouldn't be a problem. And then watching Anatoly's warm-ups too on deadlift, because I watched all the my competitors lifting throughout the day. It doesn't really bother me psychologically. I saw Anatoly's warm-ups for deadlift, and I knew that he looked off, and I knew that he wasn't going to deadlift over 350. Like, I had called it in the warm-up room. I'm like, he's not going to go over 350. And we get out on the platform. He hits his first one at I think 325, and I saw how it moved. I'm like, there's no way he's touching 350 today. And at that point, I knew I was going to win.
Do you think, because I know for a little while there, he was dealing with some back injuries. Squat wasn't too bad because he's relatively upright. And in Sheffield, he paced amazing with the subtotal, and from the deadlifts, he didn't have it. Do you think, but he's much more healthy for Worlds. There's no question. 100%, I got
Oh
no
yeah,
idea. Nobody's ever really 100% though, right? Or do
no,
you think some lifters, if they want to go all out on squat, you can anticipate the deadlifts going down. They need to almost pull back a stitch, not a lot. Not we're talking drop 10 kilos on squat for 10 kilos on deadlift. Sometimes you drop 2.5, 5 kilos on squat and you'll get 10 kilos on deadlift. Sometimes it's actually way more kilos that you can have later on. But if you redline it, the ability to come back from a red line just isn't there.
yeah. I mean, I actually strategically I do that at almost all my meets. It's very rare that I ever actually truly max my squat out at a meet. I almost never actually hit like my true top end max at a meet. Like even at Worlds, 804, squat was not my top end at the time, but I did that because I knew strategically it would set me up to have an easier time on deadlifts, and I'd have a lot more room, in the tank. Even if you look at nationals last year against Bobb and Keenan, I squatted, I think it was like 840 pounds that day. I felt good for more, But I attempted that because I knew, well, if I deadlift this much and I bench, what I've been benching in training, I think that seals the deal. And that's how I plan my squat attempts. I don't necessarily plan them based off of what my true max is, but I plan them, based off of something that I see myself having like at least a 95+% probability of doing, and building a total strategically, and saving wiggle room for the deadlift. That's also why I actually take the bigger jumps too,
Mm.
because there's some conservation and energy there. I mean, Anatoly's squat attempts at Worlds were what, 350? He opened with 350, which in my opinion was not a good idea, but
It was
it's their
350.
strategy.
Yeah.
The Ukrainians, when they compete, they tend to take very, systematic, jumps, and they don't really deviate too far from that. So he did 350. I think it was like 360, two, or
3.5.
yeah. And
Yep.
then he took 370.5.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, he's taken three squats that are within like give or take 20 kilos of each other, 20.5 kilos. That's a lot. That would be like last year when I competed at nationals, that would be like me squatting, you know, 360, 370, 380.5, which is too much if you also have to pull for a win or deadlift for a win. That's just going to physiologically tax you too much, at least most people. So, what I do is, well, I calculate backwards kind of percentages, of certain numbers. I'm like, that's about probably where I need to start. So at Worlds, I finished with an 800+ pound squat, but I opened with 716. See?
Yeah.
So I took a lot less lifts in that heavier threshold range. So when I got to deadlifts, I felt a lot fresher. And I didn't have any grip problems. My back felt fine. And I was, it's good to go.
To your point, you guys started, he was 25 kilos up on squat. You guys finished, he was only 5 kilos.
Yep.
You just made bigger jumps. Now they would, you know, it's like the dicey proposition. And this is where Matt Gary would appeal to your strategy more, where it's don't plan on missing. You just plan on executing. You got to do that. And the dicey proposition is if you're stitch on confident, oh my God, anything could happen. What if I miss my third and I got to move forward with my second? And that's where you
Right.
start getting anxiety, start questioning yourself, and you start putting a bigger second than you ought, maybe. And then you start really spinning the wheels and be like, what if we just move forward on our opener? It's got to be something substantial. And this is where Matt Gary and Team USA, unlike Team Ukraine, is like, no, you're thinking wrong. And if you follow that path, to your point, you're going to be gassed out. You're not going to go 9 for 9. It's very, very difficult to go 9 for 9 all
Oh, yeah.
top end all day. Especially people are like, well, it's only 9 lifts. Gotcha. But the hype factor, the adrenaline factor, if it's that high, you have to amp up the adrenaline for 9 lifts. That's what people don't, and it's worlds. It's what people don't understand is how much more tired you feel when adrenaline is that high and you got the crowd yelling it's for the world title than just saying, well, it's only 9 times you're lifting. That does not, saying 9 attempts does not
That's a
encapsulate
lot,
all what
actually. Yeah.
that's true
And
too.
And to your point, like if you're, Ukrainian lifter and you're taking those smaller jumps, you have to get to a certain level of arousal for every single attempt. In
Yeah.
my case, when I open with 716 on squat, like it's 716 pounds. You can't treat it like it's, 315 pounds. You'll get, or something bad could happen. But I don't
Right.
have to get to that same sort of level of arousal and hype and energy that I do at 716 that I do at 840, right? Two totally different, and because of that, again, even just from a perspective of arousal, there's still energy conservation that's happening there too.
And for some people who would be like, well, a guy like Penna can, it's like, my friend, you better figure out the way you are as a lifter and understand yourself and don't base it off of other people. And don't say,
Right.
like, well, mine not over matter. No, man, read yourself, follow the patterns, follow
Yeah.
you go in
The
there like you're
data.
Superman. you know?
Yeah. You can't do that. Yeah, you have to follow the data, for yourself, right? I mean, because Pano, he's an exceptional case, right? A guy who can lift
Yeah.
over and over, super high intensity at top end, and get by and make attempts still. I mean, his second attempts will look really, really hard. He'll hit a third one and he'll finish it, and to your point, you got to know yourself, right? Now, I even wonder if my strategy would work for him actually and make his thirds easier. But that's another conversation. But I mean, but what he's doing now still clearly works still. But for him, most lifters, I don't think have that capacity to strike within that range of their max so many times, on the same day in the same 2 hour session. It's a lot to demand from your body for sure. I even take my training, honestly, my approach in training the same way. I see a lot of people, I see a lot of kids, a lot of folks hit really big numbers in training all the time. And my training will sometimes look like lackluster or boring next to it. But when we get to the meet,
Right.
I show up and it's strategy, you know.
And you wonder, like, you can always improve. Like, you're right. Anatoly, his strategy obviously works. He's won world titles and he's very well decorated. But you
Right.
can always improve. You could always glean patterns. There's definitely a pattern here. He crushes squats, got a big bench. And I'm not saying his deadlift's going to turn into something like your deadlift, but certainly you could squeeze more out of it. Even for his previous deadlift, he's not performing what he previously could do, let alone if he's stronger. And judging by the squat and bench, he's stronger.
Oh
We should
yeah.
see at least improvement on deadlift, not massive leaps and bounds, but at least some improvement. And this is where you wonder, like, if some nations are going to be stuck in their attempt selection. Like some nations, they don't approach it like, let me talk to the lifter or let me look at a different approach. Some nations, I swear, are straight up, this is how we do it. I'm, as the head coach, it's like a machismo thing. As a head coach, this is how I do it. And it's like, my man, it won't work for everybody, you know?
No, that's a little foolish, to assume when you take a roster of world class, lifters that one size will fit all. I think that's just a foolish notion altogether. And I'm not trying to, openly or directly insult those individuals, but what I'm saying is I think you have to understand that there are differences, in how all those. I mean, let's just even if you just think about this logically, why would you take the same exact approach with the 59 kilo lifter as a 120 plus kilo
Right.
lifter? Nine,
Yeah.
like, 9 times out of 10, that probably won't work well for one or the other, right? Depending on the type of strategy you lean towards. I think that, there has to be some level of personalization, especially at this, world class level, right? You're not taking, a bunch of novices or people that have lifted for a year and training them all, in mass, but you're taking a roster of, 10 to 20 people that are elite level lifters and you're trying to get them all to perform at their best on a day that it matters. And you can't, it won't be the same thing for every single one. I just don't see a world where that happens.
And yeah, and I've seen it. I'm not saying specifically Ukraine, but I have seen other nations that definitely do. They have a handling approach and they do it every single time, all the same. And if it's a case of, well, actually, no, guys, he had a bit of a toasty back and he's still not 100%, but he's better. All the more reason to not do 3 heavy squats. Like, if
Yeah.
that's the case, you do it. If
Like
that's the
even
case,
no, exactly. Even when I was going into worlds, like, you know, I was a lot healthier than I was, in the preceding months, but I still wasn't 100. I'm like, well, let me still take these like, sizable jumps and leave room in the tank for thirds and not totally empty the tank on all three of them. And that generally worked. And that paid off because now I do feel like near 100% healthy again. And I've been getting really, really strong. But yeah, I mean, to your point, I think that, if you're dealing still with problems, that's all the more reason to not, go balls to the wall on every single lift on all 9 attempts. To me, that just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make good sense. And let's address the elephant in the room too. Strategically, it's just bad planning because if we know how you're going to plan your attempts, we can literally plan to beat you and we'll be correct 90+% of the time.
right.
And that's exactly what we did with Anatoly. Well, this is probably what he was going to hit. And all the top ends that I had for him on all three lifts, I knew. I'm like, well, I don't see him even attempting more than this because, I don't think he will literally, I just don't think they'll do it. Um, and so I knew going into the meet that he wasn't going to hit over a certain number, and he didn't. And that was ultimately to our advantage because we know their strategies so well. With me and how my meets go and how big of jumps I take, or sometimes I do less attempts, I'm a little bit more on the unpredictable side than for them, right? They don't know what I'm going to come in with and they don't know exactly what I'm going to do. They can only speculate, whereas with us, the inverse, with us guessing what they're going to do, it's almost down to an exact science, man. Like we know what they're going to do for the most part.
You and Bob are both potential switch hitters from conventional to sumo if you have to. Depending on if the back gets toasty, you have backup plans. Anything can happen. It's a lot harder to predict. Whereas, I mean, even I think Perk was on and he was saying they were in the audience watching Jurgens versus Russ. And as soon as Russ missed that third squat and began the bench press, some people in the audience, and there are powerlifting nerds out there, people got to understand that just peruse open powerlifting and they know, even if you're not in their weight class or whatever, they're just mega fans and they see patterns. They see patterns and they're like, I guarantee you Russ goes this for second, this for third. And then once the deadlift started, it was like, I think Russ is in serious trouble. Just because they
Right.
already know if he starts with this, he ends with that. And they already know. And there's very little shakeup. I mean, there's patterns to be gleaned sometimes, anyways.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So, one of the things that you're saying right now, right? I mean, and it's not just Russ, but it's other lifters too. I mean, I if I've seen enough of their meets, I can generally, with a pretty high accuracy, predict what they're going to do at that point, because I mean, the people can only make so much progress in so much, amount of time. Now, of course, there are exceptions. There are some people that make very significant leaps in progress, and it does happen. But for the most part, in competition, maybe in training, yes, but in competition, it doesn't always pan out that way. And as I was watching the 83s, I pretty much knew right around where Russ was going to bench and pull. And for Jurgens, I didn't know what he was going to deadlift.
Right.
I was like,
That
well,
was
when I saw that he had a low 350, I was like, shit, he might get that. And then he
right
did.
on that day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Previously, Jurgens wasn't doing that. But I mean, my God, has he had a remarkable turnaround at 35 years old?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's one of those things, I think. I mean, when you become a predictable opponent, it becomes a lot easier for people to plan to beat you. I mean, that's why I'll do meets sometimes where I'll really sandbag one or two lifts and the total will, be decent. Or I'll do like 6 attempts and, I'll total like 2000 or 2050 or whatever. And then when I got to show up and it's a serious meet, boom, I do like 2140 or something like, and then win. Like people, they can't always predict. They won't always see coming, what exactly I'm planning to do.
The next day, Bob lifts,
Yep.
and he had warned everybody, don't get clapped by a 105.
He did.
And he went in. Bob thinks the guy's a special talent, but he referred to himself as a 105. Now, at that point, and we'll get into the Marcellus podcast and what Marcellus had revealed. But at that point, anyways, are you getting ready? Like, holy smokes, okay. And Bob weighed in 105 in point like 9 or something. It's crazy.
Something. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Are you telling yourself we're gonna rumble again? And what are your thoughts on it? Are you confident or like good, good? He's hyped, maybe, but maybe I'm underhyped and people don't know how much I could bring to the table.
Yeah. So to answer your question, I think for the most part, most people don't understand that with Bob and I think some people watch Worlds and they'll think, oh, Bob will just blow Ashton out of the water. But Bob knows, and Ashton knows, and Marcellus knows that that's not true at all. Like, it'll be another, like, ring toss on who could win because, um, my strength very often responds to need. And if I need to do more, I can usually do more. It's just like even when we went against each other in September, a lot of people did not expect me. A lot of people expected Bob to win that. And, if you watch all the lifts back, we all agreed that I was the strongest lifter on that day. But, people, I think, one, forget history, and then two, very quickly nowadays, it seems like, and it gets lost on them. But two, they see what's directly in front of them and they can't see the forest past the trees. And they're like, oh, well, Bob did this, Ashton did this, Bob's just going to smoke him. And it's like, It's not that simple. So if we had to go against each other again, I'm very confident that I could potentially win. Now, would I say, oh, I'm just going to smoke Bob no matter what? Like, no, I wouldn't be foolish enough to say that because I understand how close we are in, true strength that I couldn't make that kind of guarantee. But could I say that there's actually a possibility that I win if I'm strategic and I plan and, I hit certain numbers and I put pressure on them? Then yeah, I could still win that kind of fight. Um, but I think yeah. And I think one of the things that plays into what you're saying too, Ryan, is that a lot of my training again isn't as exciting or always as sexy as some of the other lifters, right? Like for Bob, for example, Bob loves training at high intensities. And he responds well to it. He stays relatively healthy and he has fun doing it, right? So
Hmm.
that's how he trains. For me, my lifestyle is a little bit different. I do a lot of things that are very stressful and take a lot of energy out of me physically, psychologically, mentally, and that are very demanding. So I've had to adjust my training and train differently to accommodate for that, right? So it's a completely different ball game. But as long as I do that and I plan and I'm strategic in my approach, by the time I get to a meet or I start peaking and I start hitting heavy numbers again, I feel good and I start moving big weights. That's actually what happened yesterday. So it's different strategies. I think there's a recency bias. I think people forget what has happened even within the last year, less than a year, still. But yeah, I mean, if we had to go again, I'd be ready.
Comparing numbers, you're going to load up to beat Anatoly. You're not loading up to go all out. It'd be foolish to overreach on squat, to overextend on squat, to load up more than you would need on deadlift. It'd be crazy. You
Right.
got to stay in the pocket. So
Hmm.
that's where the recency bias might come in. And Bob, he had the entire opposite situation, as well as you don't want to extend the record needlessly when Sheffield's around the corner as well. Whereas Bob in the 120s, at least initially, was thinking it doesn't matter what I do to the record because I'm probably going to go 105, and he could just go all out and be in that, and he probably needs to, or if he did, there's no pushback in terms of Sheffield. It doesn't shoot himself in the foot in that respect. So why not? So that's where comparing the two totals really wouldn't be fair. Now, it's been said, Marcellus came on the podcast. Bob is actually 80% not going to go to Sheffield, 20% he's going. Were
Yeah.
you surprised to hear that? And what are your thoughts when you hear that?
So I wasn't particularly shocked, just because of what Bob's goals are. And I've talked to Bob about this, so I actually kind of knew some of this information already, at least as of recently. But I mean, when we talked about it, Bob's ultimate vision is to be, a 120 and to put up a ridiculous amount of weight and to put up an insanely crazy total and a fill out 120. And his vision that he has for himself, his long-term goal is exactly that. It's a long-term goal. He's not worried too much, I guess, about like the shorter term, intermediate term kind of goals. I mean, he'll still, if he shows up to a meet, he's still gonna, put up some numbers, but like Sheffield for him, at least this upcoming one wasn't really a huge target, I think, like on his radar, as much as, 2 years from now, 1 year from now, being closer to 120 and filling out the class more and actually putting up really big monstrous totals. So if that's your goal and you kind of cut back down again to 105 to try to do Sheffield and to try to win, and it's not even guaranteed that you'll just stroll in and just easily win,
Well, that's for sure.
yeah, right. It's going to be a fight, and we both know
Yeah.
it'd be a fight. And I always welcome it, and he welcomes it too. I know that we're both about it, and it is what it is. But for his longer term goals, dropping back down in weight and not allowing his body to gain the mass, I think will ultimately deter him from his longer term goal, or at least prolong how long it takes him to get there. So I'm not sure that risk is worth it for him. But I mean, who knows? He could change his mind and say, you know what? It's been really hard for me to gain weight. I feel great right now. I'm pretty close to 105. I'm just gonna show up and do 105. So I know that's a possibility too.
This is what's sneaky, my friend. Okay. This is what's sneaky because I thought if he was committing full send 120, he weighed in at 105 still. And it's been a hot minute he's been at 120 now. It's been a hot minute his goal was 120. His body weight has not nudged. He's still at 105.
Well, so one of the big reasons that actually happened too, to provide some context, because I actually lost some weight in Lithuania too. It wasn't so much because of the travel. I think for me, it was because I was watching sessions and like a lot of restaurants and stuff would close, so I'd eat one meal a day sometimes on accident. But for Bob, I think it was more a thing of he gets a lot of his calories from liquids, and so he was actually gaining weight here. Like he was actually getting bigger. I think he was up to like 108, like give or take, but he was just slowly kind of systematically gaining weight because he's pretty precise about those kinds of things. But when he came to Lithuania, he wasn't having all those liquid calories, so I think there was a significant drop in his overall consumption, and he just kind of like lost weight like pretty quickly at that point because he's been trying to aggressively gain weight. So, but to your point though, like yeah, I mean, it might just be difficult for him to gain that weight right now. I don't know, and he could,
Might not.
like yeah, November could roll around and he could be like 106 and he's like, you know what? Why don't I just do 105? You know?
He might be
So
keeping people guessing on purpose. Let's put it this way.
that too.
He does, right?
Yeah.
And why not? Why not grab people's attention? Why not be a part of the conversation? I mean, this is your moment. It's the biggest competition. It's at least the biggest single day event in powerlifting. Why not have some fun here and have people guessing? So if I have $1 million on the table right now,
Mhm.
first question I'm gonna say, you have to bet this $1 million. Bob shows up and competes at Sheffield, or Bob does not. Which way are you betting that million?
Shit. That's a good question. Hmm. I actually have to sit and think about this. Um, because I think everything I said was true, but I also think what you said is true too. And a part of me wonders, well, let's look at history, right? Like when we did the Arnold, for example, I think the pro finale it was one of those meets. He weighed in at like 220 something. He weighed in like really, really light. I remember that. And I know he intentionally did that too, without really telling anybody. Which it's sport, you can do that. He didn't cheat or anything, but right.
Say,
But he
let's
taught
say,
people.
let's say just compete, not weight class yet. That'll be the second question. But do you think he just at least competes? Then I'm going to throw another million on the table and we'll bet on that second part of the question. But what do you think about only he shows up and competes and we'll leave out weight class?
I want to say he won't, but I also know. I mean, I know a competitor when I see one. I'm a competitor. Bob's a competitor. I don't know. He might do it. Let's go with he does. Let's go with he does.
I'm going to say if you give me the same deal, $1 million on the table, I'm betting he shows up and he competes. I'll tell you why what I think. I think there's a couple pieces that could be going on right now. A, he might be throwing discussion pieces out there. His intentions are he's gonna compete, but he wants to keep people guessing. He's kept people guessing before, and it's not a bad strategy. It keep
Oh
because
no.
we already said exactly your opponents don't know what to anticipate, but you have the drop on everybody. You're in control. It's not a bad strategy, as well as you stay in the conversation regularly. But let's say it's not even that. Let's say it's not a mastermind picture. Let's say he actually is humming and hawing about it because he's eyeing Rondell and he's just whatever. I get Bob's different. This was Marcel's saying he just sees things differently. I can't fully wrap my head around that, but if that's what it is, I think it's one thing this far out to be saying, you know what, I might forego and just go all in on Rondell and bulking up. And if I'm going to be an in between by the time as a 120 by the time it rolls around, and I'm literally just going to like chip the record a little bit at 120. It's not going to be enough that I want to win it anyway. It's not chip it. He'll extend it, but not to the tune of what you or Perk might be able to do. Then I'm not going to go. And I think you might think that way this far out. But the closer and that's what Marcellus was saying it might be.
Yeah,
But
that's what I was
the
saying too. Because he's a competitor. Yeah, I don't know.
dog,
I think he's gonna
but
flip like his mind.
as soon as we get close, let a couple of these Road to Sheffield videos come out.
Videos come out.
Let people start the drums haven't been beating yet. The hype drums haven't even started yet. Wait until the hype drums start and the party that's about to happen, which is Sheffield, is about now. You can't even picture it this far out. It's like talking about plans too far in the future don't feel real. Not even to me, and I've worked them several times. I'm not like how excited are you for Sheffield 2025? I mean, I'm excited, but my excitement levels for it really are going to be when we start doing podcasts hyping it, when the videos start coming out. It's like, holy shit, this is about to happen, right? Right now, you can't even wrap your head around. There's other things in life going on that are much sooner, much closer. That's why you can sort of kind of, when you're thinking in the future, humming and hawing about it. But when we
Right.
get close enough, when we start getting close, he's going to tell himself, I'm really going to miss this party. Everybody's invited to this party. All the best of the best in the world are going to be there. In a life experience, that's going to be, even if you went as a 120, that's what I tell him ourselves. Even if you go as a 120 and you're like, look, I'll take the record. Maybe he goes 1,000 kilos. That'd be amazing. But probably not enough to beat, Perk, and God knows what you might do as well. So, but even if you make history there and just that whole experience of 2,500 people losing their minds and everything that Sheffield is, all the digital assets that can be created, everything that's going to be out there, I got a feeling when it rolls around, he'd be like, I'm going to be there. I'm coming.
Yeah.
So
That's what I
that's what I think.
and that's why I bet for it too, man. Because I was like, like he's saying this now, and I get logically why he's saying it. Like it's not completely gone to me why he wants to kind of do things this way. But I know that he's a competitor, and I'm a competitor,
Mm,
and I just know when when things roll up, you know, it's the action is around the corner, and you have a letter with your name on it, and there could potentially be a check, with your name on it, and a
okay.
record and a legacy, title with your name on it. It's just really hard to just sit it out and just skip it. The man in you is just not going to want to do that. Like the man in me doesn't want to do that. And so I know that I've already went all in, man. Like since the day of Worlds, I've been all in. Before I was like with Sheffield, I'm like, it's a cool meet. I love watching it, but I don't care that much about um, breaking the world record by this percentage to win. But now that we're here and now, and there's a chance to go against a bunch of the best in the world, the competitor in me, the man in me, can't sit it out.
No,
you know and for Bob, I don't know, it might be the same thing, and he might show up. And I even talked to Bob about this. I'm like, look, man, if you do 120 and you gain as much weight as possible and you hit this number, you've got a pretty good probability of winning or at least placing top three. So why even pass that up? and for me, it wouldn't make sense to pass that up, because even in my mind, like even if I get third, if I get top three at Sheffield, I'm walking away with a fat paycheck, man. And
dog.
yeah, and you podium at Sheffield. I mean, that's an amazing accomplishment. First, second, or third. And in my mind, I'm gonna be top three, but I really want to win. So that's what I'm
Right.
training for. But I get it though. So yeah, I would bet that he would show up, and I know I'm jumping the gun here, but I do think that
This is the second million. Here's the second
yeah,
million now. The second part
yep.
of you got another
Second million
million
on the
on the
line,
table.
105 or 120, right? Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Hmm. I don't know. I want to say 120, but the one thing that's keeping me from saying that is all the stuff I just said about him being a competitor. The competitor and the man in him sees me there at 105, you know. And we have history. We've done several meets together, but our last, direct head-to-head weight class straight up battle, like I won it, you
Right.
know. And a part of him might be like, I don't know, man. I want to go into this because it's going to be a weight class head-to-head battle again, and
Yes.
which one of us come out on top. So if he does Sheffield, like if he does go, I think there might be a higher chance he does 105 versus 120. But I don't want to say that, but I still want to say that I think it's close though. Like I think it'd be like a 60-40 split right now. Like 60 he would do 105, 40 he would do 120, just to kind of like clarify. I think exactly where it would be at.
So $2 million worth of bets right now. Please don't come and collect if you're right. But
Yeah.
you're newly married. You can use that 2 mil. Okay, I'll write you a check. But if we got a million on the table for me, I'm 100%. I'm saying I'm not 100%. Sorry. I think he's going 105, and here's why. I think he again will try to bulk up, and I would not be surprised at all if he starts getting around 108 again. Well, 108 is 3 kilos away from 105. I mean, that's Penna. will drop
That's
three
an easy
kilos.
cut.
Like that's a 66 has dropped 3 kilos. We're talking if he gets a spread of 5 kilos, 6 kilos, he could still go 105. It's still not enough. And I can't see him going from like for all the reasons that he ended up floating around 105 body weight. By the time Sheffield rolls around, which isn't a crazy extended period, I don't think he's going to be far enough from 105 that he couldn't just water cut. I don't even mean cut. He'll be a water cut away, I think. I
Yeah.
anticipate. If
He
he's
could
110,
travel.
that's a water cut.
He could
Jessica
literally
Bittner
travel.
water cuts that.
He would lose his water calorie, like his liquid calories. I mean, sorry, like and be in like England for like a few days, and he'd probably be at 105.
I mean, seriously, like it or not, he'll be a 105, I think, almost. And
Yeah,
again, not only that, so I think as he's rolling towards Sheffield, things will start becoming more and more clear to him. I think the body weight isn't going to augment to any crazy standards. That's not what history has told us. History is an amazing indicator of the future. And when it comes to Bob's body weight, he probably naturally rests around 105, 108, maybe 110. Look at 5 kilos still for a man that size. Jessica Bittner's crushing 5 kilo cuts, way smaller than him. He could do it. So I think by the time it rolls around and he's checking his body weight and he's like, fuck me, I could do this. And that's where, if I had advice for you, Ash, get ready, stay ready.
anticipated. Yeah,
And this is going to
yeah.
be it's a sleeper showdown. People aren't super excited for it yet because it hasn't been official because of the talk we're talking about now. But once it does, we got Russ versus Jurgens, you versus Bob. Dog, in terms of head to heads, forget about it.
That's massive. Yeah,
Absolutely insane. And
it's
we'll see what
massive.
happens with the 66s and the other weight classes. While we'll probably have more get brought in, whoever else, like 74s and whatever the hell. But just those alone that we know for sure,
Hmm.
forget about it. Forget about it.
Yeah.
I can't miss powerlifting. My advice, man, get ready, stay ready. I know you're gonna anyways. And you're the type of guy, you've people have dropped in on you on what like Keen in South Korea,
Oh
and
yeah.
you're ready for the battle. People they think they're gonna get the drop on you. You're ready for a battle either which way. But
Oh yeah.
this this one I
So
see
when I
coming
show
up.
up, yeah, when I show up the day of, man, and somebody wants to drop in and they want it, I bring it. I'm like, all right, let's do it. I always I welcome it, man. I've always invited it. So if he does show up and he shows up at 105, like regardless, there's numbers that I have kind of that I'm planning towards that I'm gonna put up, and if he's not at 100%, I don't know if he'll be able to. It's going to be big. It's going to be big for sure.
Where's your body weight going to be for all this? Well, how was your body weight and everything for Worlds, and what's your plans for Sheffield?
Yeah, so I weighed in a little bit light at Worlds, like I was saying. I was like 226, which is a little bit light for me. I'm usually a bit bigger than that. But I mean, I still felt pretty good at that weight.
And
But
you're
I'll probably
102.9. Freak, man. And there was no cut there at all?
no, it was really because I had lost maybe because I was usually around 230. I lost a little bit of weight when I was eating a little bit less in Lithuania. Not because I like lost my appetite, but just busy like watching, the meats, like not always eating and then like proposing and just a whole bunch of other stuff, right? That happened while I was in Lithuania. But no, I mean, at Sheffield, I'll most likely weigh in right around like 231, like 105. Right now, I'm more than that, as you could probably tell.
Yeah, you look big, man. Well, like, do
Yeah.
you not like water cutting? Like, or do you think, or is it like, would you get something out of being a big, because you want to be as big and strong as possible, obviously, regardless. But I'm anticipating Bob will be there as a 105. We'll see what happens. But have you thought about, what does Ashton lift if he's 108, 109 and cuts water down to 105? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. No, yeah, that's what I've actually been doing. Because
Okay.
in my mind, I'm like, I have to be ready for that possibility, right?
Right.
So I actually did gain weight pretty fast after Worlds. Like some nights I weigh in around like 240.
Oh,
But usually
nice.
like
Good.
237, 238. And what I'm trying to do is, minus whenever I have to like take a, like a PT test soon or whatever, I'm trying to keep my body weight at a slightly higher range and, do a very small cut into going into worlds. Because what I've found is that, I mean, one, it's going to be good for overall health because I'm going to have more mass while I'm lifting heavier weights, but
Mm.
I can also get stronger faster, which is what happened. Like yesterday, I had a pretty insane training session. And just sitting a couple pounds heavier and sitting at that weight for a couple of weeks has like already done wonders for me, and I feel way healthier with like the loads that I'm doing lately. So yeah, that's pretty much the plan for me. I mean, I'm probably gonna stay at a slightly heavier body weight and then cut into Sheffield, that like last, you know, 3, 4 weeks into it. Very, very non-aggressive kind of cut, but then water cut whatever, 2, 3 kilos left over. And yeah, which is easy for me. So I mean, yeah.
Yeah, 2, 3 kilos and is for water is like nothing. I don't even know if you got to sweat that, maybe a little water loading, but
Yeah. I wouldn't really notice it strength. I don't think strength wise now.
no, 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 no. And yeah, you got at this point, it's going to be at the margins. Whoever wins between you and Bob is going to be whoever plays us the best. In terms of attempt selection, in terms of being as injury free as possible. There'll always be some, little bang ups here and
Something
there.
going on. Yeah.
There's always something going on. Whenever someone enters and they have something going on and they're a little nervous about it, it's like, relax. I guarantee you the other people are got stuff going on as well. Almost everybody I've ever talked to beforehand, they're not trying to talk about it. So they're like, no, I'm 100%, because you have to tell yourself this to get yourself confident. But afterwards, you're like, okay, I'll be honest. I was dealing with a couple things here and there, but I figured everybody is. It's all good. And that's usually the truth, anyways.
That's yeah. I mean, that's kind of how it pans out. I think most of the part, for the most part.
Yeah. But it's yeah, this is I'm eagerly anticipating, and also want to ask you. So beforehand, we'd spoken briefly about a 93 in the future. Um,
Oh yeah,
Marcellus said afterwards, he's like, I don't know, maybe Ash at 105, easier to possibly like when you're a larger human, you're not going to get banged up from lifting. You guys lift massive weights, squat massive weights, etc. So he's like, maybe it's easier to push off potential injuries, being thick, being strong. But I don't know, man. Looking like I just had Gavin Aiden on yesterday, and he hooked up with a nutritionist like a Lane Norton, and he weighed under. Previously, he was missing weight, and he never was. I mean, he the first 93 to go over 900. He's never felt stronger. So I don't know. What do you think about jumping into the
no,
93 at some
it's
point?
it's still on the table for me. Like it's still in the cards. I know with my career, at some point, it'll probably be easier for me to sit around, 210, 215 pounds rather than like 235, 240. Just by the nature of it would be easier to be at that weight in the long term, and that's eventually probably where I'll end up. And I mean, this kind of sounds like silly, but also part of me, I used to love watching a lot. I used to love watching a lot of like old time, like boxers and stuff like that, like old school heavyweights, that were like 210, 215, and they were super agile and strong. And I was like, man, I want to be like that. So that's kind of where that comes from. But I like that weight range. And I think for me it works really well too. But I mean, yeah, it's all that to say, it's still definitely on the table. And if I do another sport or thing after powerlifting, it'll help me transition that much easier versus being
Mm,
a lot bigger. Um, so it's definitely still on the table. It's definitely something I'm still thinking about. Between now and Sheffield, like possibility from Worlds, if I had went the opposite direction, yes. But would it have been a little bit too much too fast? Probably. So I figure, if that's something I really want to do, I should probably be pretty methodical with it and take a good amount of time to do it. So that's kind of where I'm at with that, but it's definitely in the cards still, just not in like the super immediate future, but
mm.
within, a couple of years, a year, who knows?
Because you're locked in terms of scheduling. Obviously, you've qualified for the World Games as well.
Yeah.
Do you think your
Now
weight
technically I
class?
could do 93. I could technically do 93 or 105 at World Games.
I was just about to say.
Yeah.
I was just about your weight class, I think, is 93, 105. Whole smokes.
Yep. For heavyweight men, yeah.
Hmm. Very interesting, sir. Maybe me. What do you think? I don't know. That's really going to help your GL points. Like overall, it'd be really tempting to go after that 93 kilo total world record at World Games. And then it'll definitely help the GL points if you drop in body weight and can maintain a high level strength like that. Um, yeah, freak.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah, it's not impossible either, you know. It would be difficult, but it's not impossible. It's something I've been thinking about. I mean, I tell myself in the past, I hit a 900 kilo total in a meet, and I think I weighed like 94 kilos when I did it. And then someone like this, you know, Gavin recently just hit 901. So it's been that many years. I think it's been like 5 years since I've done that, 5 or 6 years.
Mm,
So now in my mind, I'm just like, hmm, I could I could probably pull that off. I don't know.
hmm.
And I think, you know, if I got down to that weight, you know, in a safe way, I'm pretty sure I could do a lot more than I did then. So, I mean, yeah, it's within the realm of possibility. I'm not overlooking it.
You're definitely stronger than you were then. You have to be. I mean, you are. We just know
Yeah.
you are. So your total will definitely have gone up. It'll just be doing it in a fashion that you stay healthy and you probably want to get. Do you have a nutritionist right now?
No, not right now.
Yeah, you don't really need one to make weight or anything, but it's really when to make weight that you need one.
For
If
that
you're not
kind of dramatic, yeah. Oh,
for that, I would anticipate either Kendrick or freaking Lane, or there's a bunch of them. I'm it's there's so many out there possibly, but yeah, to do it to land that plane, you're gonna have some turbulence here and there, but it's not so much. A lot of it is it's just calories in, calories out. To an extent, that's easy enough. But you want a nutritionist when things get shaky and things aren't going exactly as planned, and then you need to act. That's really why you get a nutritionist. In the last week, for the most part, a lot of it is again calories in, eat more calories, expend more calories, increase steps, lower calories. It is what it is. But the nutritionist is when things. It's like okay, I'm dropping calories, I'm increasing steps, and the body weight's not moving. And the anxiety's starting to go up because like, holy shit, how many weeks out are we? It
yep.
becomes this is when they earn their money. They earn their money when things go sideways. That and also when it's like the week out and you're talking okay, because you for 93, you'll definitely have to walk a cut. Um,
Oh
and
yeah,
that's for
no doubt. Because I won't actually be sitting at 205. There's no way.
no, sir. No, you would be jacked. You would be the 93 version of Russell or Heat jacked if you
Yeah.
if
I would
you're
look ridiculous at 93 right now. Yeah.
but yeah, you better get a professional photographer, go in the studio and be like, take as many pics as possible. I ain't gonna look like this the rest of my life. This is you would be so diced the week before. It'd be like,
Yeah.
yo, I want them all framed in my house because I'm this is amazing. But yeah. Um and what do you think about some of the other stuff that we saw at Worlds and that we're going to see at Sheffield? What are your thoughts on the Germans Russ rematch? What do you
Mm.
expect out of Perk?
Oh yeah, you know, that's a good point. I've thought a lot about that too. With the Germans and Russ, since they'll be in a head to head sort of kind of confrontation battle, it's going to be really hard for them, I think, to push the world record total to a degree that Perkins or I could do, since you know right now theoretically we don't necessarily have that same head to head sort of stress. You know, they have that. And I know that that makes it a lot more difficult sometimes to push the total a bit more aggressively. Now I might, you know, with Bob, but that's, you know, for now, speculation. As we get closer,
Mm,
it might be fact. We'll see. But for them, I think it's going to maybe hinder what their true top ends could potentially be if they're trying to just strategically one up each other. Um, Perkins doesn't have that problem right now. So for him, it's going to be interesting. I wonder how much you know, of it will be about him versus him on the day, right? Like at Worlds, for example, where you know we talked about this, he was like pretty, you know, on edge and tensed up and keyed up and stuff like that. I do wonder, a part of me wonders how much of that will he feel at Sheffield with so much on the line, it being such a big meet. And let's face it, a lot of people will probably peg him as the favorite to win. So that's going to be a lot of pressure going into that meet riding onto him. And I'm not sure how he'll manage or handle all of that, you know, and on the day too while he competes. But I guess, you know, that's left to the imagination for now, but we'll find out in January. Um, in my case, it's kind of like, well, the world record, I know where it's at right now, and I know I've done a lot more in the past at around a similar body weight, and I could do more than that, then now. So I'm kind of like, I don't know. I think look, like I'm kind of if we keep if I'm it's under wraps, I think, but I think I actually have a very good chance of winning Sheffield. And I'm not the kind of guy, I mean, you know me, I'm not like the super arrogant type, but I actually just by the numbers think I have a very, very strong chance at winning the meet. Now whoever shows up for, 93, of course, you can never overlook that. But again, they'd have to break the record, pretty aggressively to I think
Mm,
pass up what Perkins or I could do. So I don't think that's gonna happen either. Like I don't think one of the 93s are gonna show up and just total like 925 or 930. Like I don't see it happening. Maybe like 905, 907, or just 900 again. Like that's most likely where I think it'll land. If we look at the 120s, I mean, again, it's if Bob shows up or not and what he does. 120 plus, Jesus, you can never count out Jesus. He's shown up and he's done some pretty tremendous and remarkable things. But I will say, Jesus set the bar pretty freaking high the first Sheffield. So it's
yeah.
very difficult to, and at those kinds of weights, it's very difficult to just beat that by leaps and bounds. And then to beat it by a percentage that's going to be higher than what Perkins or myself would have to do. And that would be his biggest challenge, I think, is because he did set the bar really high that first one. For good reason. I mean, he won it. So, but
Right.
but yeah, it does make it difficult. And then 59, I could definitely see him sneaking in too. The thing with him though is, well, I don't know. It's with him. I kind of want to hold back judgment a little bit because I think that he's going to do really well. I mean, historically at meets he's done really well and he hits a lot of attempts. So I'm just going to have to watch his kind of training going into it and see how he does because he could get quite a bit stronger. I don't know. Um,
With
yeah.
Wasker, it's funny because with Wasker, I mean, Marcellus, your programming coach was his nutrition coach.
Yep.
And at one point, Wasker got like, I mean, he competes at 59 and he got up to like 70 kilos. It was crazy.
Yeah.
I, he had a call with Marcellus and he sat down. I was like laughing about like Marcellus probably opened it up, took a look at Wasker and was like, my man, you look like DJ Khaled. What the hell happened here? Like, what is going on here? Like 70 kilos. Wasker's like, hey, man, I was eating McDonald's. I was opening up a gym. I was stressed out. I couldn't get my steps in. I'm eating fast food because I can't cook a lot because he's so busy. But I say all this to point out. I love Oscar, by the way. I say all this to
Oh,
point
I think
out.
so.
I don't know how long he's going to be at 59. And Fedoshenko really set that world record. I mean, I think it's like 670 or something crazy. Now, Wasker's getting stronger, 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 stronger. And eventually he's going to get around there, but I wonder if he's going to end up a 66 by the time he gets there. And if time as a 59 isn't on his side, I think the 59 kilo class is super lucky to have Wasker because he's so charismatic, good looking guy, amazing on
Yeah. And
podcasts.
he's so awesome
Even
too. He's just an awesome dude. Yeah.
on the platform, he's charismatic on the platform. The way he was lifting with a huge spread on all of his other competitors and as a 59 kilo class, nobody watches 59 kilo class. Still people watched and tuned in because he'll put on a show. He's chasing certain numbers. Everyone knows he's chasing 95% of the world record just to get to Sheffield. And like his background story is amazing. Like what he's done for the 59 kilo class is amazing. I hope when he leaves it, somebody can grab that baton and keep it going because the 59 kilo class is more healthy than it's ever been. But it
Right.
it takes it takes star power to make us care. And eventually a showdown. Eventually
Oh
we need
yeah.
fetish. He had a shit talk back and forth with Fedoshenko, which is hilarious. When's the last time 59s are shit talking and being like, and he's like,
That's
I'm going to
insane.
be the first to put a two beside your number, like on open powerlifting. And Fedoshenko in Russian, he said it on King of Lifts. I'm going to put a two on one of your open powerlifting results when we show down. Because Fedoshenko's 22 years, only one. And like he's never lost. And Fedoshenko, somebody actually translated the King of the List, told Fedoshenko Wasker said, and Fedoshenko's like, I think he probably could beat me, but not until I'm 52. And he's like, then maybe you'll get me. Because he's 42 and he's like, I'm not ready to go. And the 59 kilo class, if eventually Fedoshenko and the Russians can come back under, I don't know what that
Yeah.
looks like, under
Now
guest lifters
that
or
would be
whatever.
if that could happen, that would be exciting. Yeah, I would tune
Oh,
into that for sure. Yeah.
oh, it would be the first time everybody's like, they're even shit. Even the promo videos would be fun. Like it's not going to happen at this Sheffield, but even the promo videos would be fire. It'd be the first time ever we have a 59 kilo clash and people are like, I gotta see this. I
Yeah.
gotta see this.
Yeah.
It
That's
just
one. That's a big one. That's actually a really big one. Yeah. That would be
yeah.
super exciting to see. Oh,
All the 59s all over would owe them a debt of gratitude because of the light they shed on the weight class. And then people talk differently about the 59s. Just like I've said this before, but way back in the day, people didn't look at the 66s even. They thought they were too small. You're a 145-pound man. And Penna changed all of that. And then all the other lifters, just in terms of popularity wise, and then all the other lifters, it was just an amazing clash. Like the
yeah.
66s here was
And now these dudes are putting up 700 plus, kilo totals. And you got to think, man, for that size, that's tremendous.
they go to any gym and they'll murder people. They go to any gym and they're like
Yeah.
pulling into the sixes, squatting into forget about it.
Yeah. That's a level of strength where they can show up to any gym on any continent, walk in, lift weights like near their top end, and be stronger than almost anyone in the gym.
Yeah. Yeah, like there'll be bodybuilders there. Like you got Daniel Clements pulling into the 700s. There'll be bodybuilders there twice their size, and they'll humble them. And that's really
Yeah.
what you need too, right? And there's a lot of quality guys. We have different characters, like very amazing background stories, like Jonathan Garcia's background story, etc. So, anyways, the 59s need that. I don't know, and it's got to happen before Wasker leaves. My man is struggling to make 59. He's still put up amazing numbers, but it's not going to be forever. Like he's not staying 59 for like 3-4 years. This shit's got to happen already real
No,
quick.
yeah. And that's the other problem with 59 too. I think it's just hard for most men who just regularly lift weights and eat food to
Right.
stay at that body weight. Like that's difficult. That's really, really difficult.
Yeah, it's 130 pounds. Like it's a natural progression. And Wasker's like jacked and ripped. Like he's hanging on by the skin of his teeth to 59 kilos.
Right.
Like
He's muscular.
Marcellus is earning every penny as his nutrition coach. you know,
Yeah.
like that's I'm
No,
sure he's had some
Marcellus
sleepless nights.
Marcellus is one of those, because a lot of people just recognize him for his powerlifting coaching, but no, he is a very knowledgeable like nutrition. Like he can do all of it. I mean, really, really well too, like competitively. I mean, you'd be shocked. Like, yeah. I mean, he took Walker from 70 kilos to 59, and then he got gold in the freaking world championship.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And in
It's
like this
great.
much time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nuts. I don't know when they took that phone call. I would love to have seen the expression on Marcellus's face when he's like, "So where are we at, man? Where's your body weight?" And he's like, 70. It's like, I'm sorry.
I
I'm
think
sorry. You
Marcel's
cut up for a second. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I think the Wi-Fi dropped out. I'm sorry. Did you say 70
yeah.
kilos? it's like, my man, you're bigger than Penna. Penna walks around at 69 kilos. He lifts a weight class up. Like you were bigger. You're a small 74 right now. He was a small 74. It's like,
Yeah.
holy shit, young man.
No, it's true. Like, it's crazy. Like, I'm pretty sure Marcellus's first reaction, I bet you he thought he was joking at first, and then he found out he was serious.
Yeah. He's like, is that why you're wearing a sweater right now? And it's freaking, it's not the winter time. Because what is going on right now, man? You really, that's tough. And they had to do it relatively quickly too. But at least Wasker knows I could drop the weight and make it happen. The problem is when you drop weight super fast, you're going to lose muscle mass. That's
Oh
just,
yeah,
you do it slow, you can lose body fat, mostly body fat. You do it quickly, you don't get to choose anymore. It's going to just come off where it comes off. And that's what's going to affect your strength. And that's when things get a little scary. It's like, holy shit. Wasker made it happen. But yeah, we'll see,
yeah.
man.
Sometimes. Yeah, no, I'm excited. I think this Sheffield will actually shape up to be a very, very good one. I think it's hard, like you said earlier, I think it's hard for people to see that right now because we're still a little bit further out. But I think once we start hitting like, November, December, and we start seeing kind of training wrap up and we see people hitting big numbers and, I think it's all going to come to a head, man. Like, I think it's actually going to be a pretty good one.
Oh, man. Like, this is in Jern's backyard, and Jern's is going against Russell of all people. Like, that alone is going to, like, tickets are like sold
Mm,
out.
that's
Tickets sell
another
out
consideration
immediately.
too. Yeah, he's got home advantage. That's another consideration. Yeah,
That's
because he
true.
probably doesn't live too
100%.
far from Sheffield. Yeah.
No, I mean, time zone change, food, and then also just the energy. Everybody's behind them. Like 25, there's going to be people flying in, but the amount of Brits there, it's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
Talk about
Like,
hostile territory for Russ.
imagine like his friends, imagine like friends, like imagine like coworkers, family, like all that stuff. They're all watching you on this massive stage, face one of the titans in the sport, that you recently
Ah.
just beat. You have like, yeah, that's a big advantage. Yeah.
But on the flip side, so if you want to light a fire under somebody, and I talked to Gavin about this, talk about lighting a fire under Russ, who think about this because I was having this conversation. We go deep into mindset, me and Gavin, when he comes on, and Gavin's the type like he just wants to express how strong he is, and he doesn't want to be outworked. And he talks about like back in school when they were running around the field for football, you could see who was running inside the lines and not all the way around, just cutting corners, literally cutting corners, not even figuratively, but that's where the expression comes from, just cutting corners in training, etc. And then you think about Gavin's always been in battles and usually probably an underdog because if Keiko's there, Keiko's got to be the favorite because he's the world champ. It was always someone else. So he could always stay hungry and stay like fighting, fighting, fighting. But then you think about what it would be like for 5 years. 2018 was the last time Russ lost. Since 2019, he was the number one ranked 83, if not world champion, number one ranked. And just year after year, he'd shown up injured, still won. He's shown up whatever the hell, and almost bombed out one year. Got one squat in on his third, still won. And you wonder. I don't think he's phoning it in or anything, but you wonder if that was a check at Worlds. And now the conversation he must have had afterwards with his team to be like, we're going to drop the hammer like Brett Gibbs is there. That we're back like that. Like this is fear, fear can be your friend in terms of igniting that fire, in terms of putting the gas in the tank, the battery in the back. And Russ needs to fear Jurgens now. Jurgens can beat him back to back right now. The whole crowd will cheer when Jurgens does. That's a possibility that Russ, it's real now. It happened. You can't show up anything less than 100%. And I'll tell you what, you could show up 100%, maybe lose. How scary is that?
All right.
Now let's see. Now we're at the tip of the spear sports. That is going to be interesting for everyone watching. And I can't wait to see what Russ does. And I think he's a lion. I mean, he is a lion. We know this.
He
He's been
is.
battle tested before.
He's yeah, man. He has won so much. I mean, we a lot of people are very excited about Jones, win, yes, but you can't just write this guy off either. Because I've said it in
Mm,
past podcasts on here actually that he's a competitive juggernaut. He's a very, very difficult guy to beat, especially if he's at his absolute best. And even seeing him at Worlds, honestly, he didn't look like he was at his absolute best. Um, and that's not to say, oh, if he was that, he just would have just, crushed Jurgens, because that's not necessarily true either. Jurgens looked crazy on the day.
yeah,
He looked ready to do anything, right? And
right.
to win. He probably was the better lift. He probably was the stronger and better lifter on the day overall. Now, with that said, going into, Sheffield, if Russ really tightens things up and treats this like how you're describing, I don't know what will happen. And with Borenstein in the mix now too, hitting
I
what he
know.
hit,
I
these
know.
guys he made a statement with that total. And now these guys have to, in my mind, if I were in that weight class, I'm like, shit, I gotta match that or do better now. Because if I show up to Sheffield and I beat the other guy, but I total less than that guy, then I still kind of lost. So I gotta do more, and that's kind of how I feel about that. What I think about that.
It's an interesting conundrum. I've thought about that situation as well, where because of the arrival of Joe Borenstein, and Joe was targeting Russ even before Worlds, he was like 860 won't be enough. Well, I mean that's Russ's unofficial world record at 83 was 860, and Joe was like, that's not going to be enough when I'm full steam. And initially, people like, nah, he's 21, he's boastful, but we've seen this before, huh? And then SBD Rally rolled around and he did 865 at
Yep.
21 years old. And it's like, oh my God. Now, if you're Jurgens, you're like, listen, my friend, I've seen people come with 860 and I beat him head to head. Things are different at Worlds. So Jurgens isn't going to be scared. He's a confident young man. And Russ himself is like, my friend, 860. I think I could do more than 860 myself. I mean, that was PA Nats when I'm lifting relatively with a nice spread. And so he's not going to be scared. All these guys are crazy confident. But it is interesting to see a 21-year-old hitting 865 this early in the game in his career. You do,
Yeah,
if not right now, it makes you wonder in 2, 3 years, where the hell is Joe going to be?
I know because Joe, I mean, in terms of just muscularity, I think Joe has a lot of room to grow in that weight class.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's clearly very strong, but you can also just tell by just visibly looking at him that he can probably get a lot more muscular in that weight class and probably get stronger too. So, I mean, he could probably stay in this weight class, and get and just recomp for another like 2 or 3 years and push that total up even a lot further, I think, than 865.
Yeah, it's weird. Like everyone's in my comments saying what's happening in the 83s is what happened in the 74s. The old king got pushed out. And I'm like, I don't know if we're ready to say that yet. This isn't quite that yet.
Yeah, it's a little too
Let's
soon to call that.
it's a little too soon to call that. Yeah, yeah. Let's have some because I know everyone's excited on Joe, Jurgens. We got some fights left. There's some more battles. There's territory to be gained. Let's see what happens. But the one piece I'm sure Russ wants, like a win over Jurgens is great because you kind of even the score. And then the 865 to best that is great because now, hey, look at I'm number one, huh? Let's reassert I'm number one and I just got revenge. But then it becomes the question of if you're reaching for 865 and start missing because you're reaching so high, and then Jurgens gets another one on you, or do you play it more conservative and just handle Jurgens and not overreach? Like that is going to be interesting.
Right. So I think for training, I actually think the latter, is the better approach because he's probably going to stay healthier and he might just show up on the game day stronger. Like I've had some pretty crazy like lifts and meets before where I trained very, very conservatively going into it and I did it with the specific goal in mind. And I showed up on the day and I was just crazy, wicked strong. And I think that there is something to that strategy that can be effective. But again, I think it does depend on the person and I think it does depend on their mindset. I think for Russ specifically, I think he should focus on endurance and train to that standard. And if he shows up, he might show up strong enough to do 865. I don't know. Like he very well could. He's done 860, so I'm not discounting that as a possibility at all.
Hmm. Man, the more I think about this, the more I can't wait. We haven't even touched on the women's side. We're not going to turn this into a preview show for Sheffield, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's a little early, but yeah, it's still freaking August for God's sake. But yeah, I'm crazy excited. Have you been watching the Olympics?
I haven't really seen much of it now. I've been really busy.
Are you an Olympics guy at all or no? Not really, I guess. Then just crazy busy or
Not huge on it. No, no, I'm not particularly huge on it.
yeah. I mean, I'm here and there, but like track is the number one for me. And Noah Lyles took the 100 meter for the first time in like 20 years for the US. But he's a colorful character. I don't know if you've seen clips, but when everybody's on the blocks, he like danced out and was like swings his arm. Like you'll have to see the video, but he lets his presence be known where everyone's already on the blocks waiting, and he like was waiting, and he's like, he's got COVID, etc. But people are like, you
Yeah.
got COVID. He literally pranced out, was doing spins with his arms out like a airplane helicopter. Like he's Another American was asked. He was a 200-meter world champ, gold medalist. I forget his name now. And someone said, "Do you think you could be the face of track and field like Noah Lyles is?" And this is his teammate. And his teammate goes, "No, because I'm not as arrogant and loud." Like, holy shit, dude. Like,
That's
holy
funny.
shit. But he's like, he's a character. Like he when they were going to look at I'm Canadian, when they were going to go against the Team Canada in the 4x100 relay, they're like, "What do you think about Team Canada?" And he's like, "Who?" And they go, "Team Canada." "Who?" And like, "Team Canada." And he's like, "Huh?" Like he
Yeah.
was purposely like he's that guy. And then when he
Yeah.
won against the Jamaican, I can't remember the Jamaican's name. But the Jamaican came in as the favorite because he actually had a better, I was about to say total. I'm such a powerlifter, but he had a better time.
Yeah.
And the Jamaican was a slight favorite. And I'm like, Team Jamaica in sprint, in track, like that's their
Yeah, they're
jam.
monsters. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolute
I know
monsters.
that.
And he was coming in as a slight underdog. And afterwards, and he was like extremely confident. Like I said, he's an underdog and he hits when everyone's on the blocks, he's putting a show. Like, and everyone's like, fuck, dude, like if you get your ass kicked here, this is gonna be very embarrassing. It's really difficult to, with that kind of pressure, in everyone watching in 100 meter, it's less than 10 seconds, a slight hiccup and you're done, and you go
Yeah.
from first to fourth. And for him to come out there and put on a show, I got to forward you this video. For him to come on there and put on a show before the beginning to let everybody know, like, I'm here, I'm the guy, and be like dancing around, prancing, and the crowd's like, you fucking American. Like,
And then he
they're
won.
all like, they're
Yep.
all there. And then in the pressure he put on, and he's the underdog, in the pressure he put on himself, like a slight underdog. It wasn't like he was a crazy underdog, but the pressure he would have put on himself, knowing these French people and all these Europeans, there's probably some Americans too, but it's in Europe. They're watching this, telling themselves, I hope you get fucking humbled. Like they
Yeah,
can't
like I hope
wait.
someone smokes your ass. Yeah.
It's like Jamaica, not even close to Paris. They're like, please beat this guy. Anybody but him. And he wants it to be anybody. Talk about anybody about me, but you're all going to talk about you're all going to
Yeah.
talk about, but the fact that like to be that confident, knowing, man, I'm going to eat shit if I lose, like this is not going to go well. Um, yeah, I don't know. We have
Yeah.
some of that in powerlifting, but this is where like track and Olympics, because it's quote unquote amateur sports, not really amateur sport much anymore, but they're sports that don't have as much. But when you have a character like that who makes people care. And look at what we're talking about on a powerlifting podcast.
Oh
It
yeah.
makes people care. That's how you do it. That's how you get it to
Yeah.
go.
You can make almost any sport. I won't say any sport, almost any sport electric if you have the right person doing it. That just is really out there, like what you're describing right now. Like that's exactly what every sport needs. At least one of those. That way, everyone can kind of like be like, okay, well, this guy is crazy and he's really good. What is this sport? And then they kind of just get into it. They start watching it, and then boom,
Mm.
you got yeah,
Or
viewership.
you hear like leading into it, you're like, did you hear about what that one guy was saying? Like all the trash he's talking, like really? And you're like, I gotta, I gotta watch this.
Yeah, he was
Like,
saying it before the competition. Yeah.
yeah, it's one thing to say it afterwards. It's another thing before. But I get where, like, when you're watching it happen and take place before he even competes, you're like, my dude, you got balls, because you were going to get memed to death if you don't pull this off. Like they
Yeah.
are going to, like when he was saying Team Canada won gold, and like whatever, like a bunch of people are doing memes and shit, but who cares? You have to actually accept it is what it is. If I get memed, I get memed, but at least I'm in it. I'm like in the conversation. I'm doing this. I'm bringing light to the sport. People are talking about it. It's exciting, but
Yeah.
it's difficult, man. You'll know leading into Sheffield, and Bob is going in. It's gonna feel that holy shit. And SPD is gonna come down with the cameras and gonna start interviewing you. And it's like,
Yep.
you stay humble or do you make people talk? I've had conversation with you actually. I think it was leading into when you face off with Bob last time. And the title of the King of the Lifts was "This Year I Destroy Everybody," and you did. Like you beat
Yep.
that. Was the title. The quote was, "This year I destroy everybody." And you came and you beat Bob, you beat Keenan, you beat everybody, right? And you reasserted yourself. But when you do stuff like that, like we'll see, like when Sheffield rolls around, God knows what's going to happen. Let's not get ahead of
Oh
ourselves.
yeah. I've got some choice words for when they show up and they ask me about what I think about Sheffield and how it's gonna go. Yeah.
I mean,
I've
it's
got
all
choice
promotion.
words. Yeah.
It's all in the end, it's like I'm gonna do my job. I'm promoting. I'm gonna make people be like, oh my god, I gotta see this. But and even to the extent, even this talk about Bob, is he gonna go? Is he not? Is it 105? Is it 120? It's all chatter. It's
Yeah.
all got people talking.
All banter. Yeah.
It's all
Yeah.
banter.
And we need
Banter
it.
is good. Yeah, we need it. Banter is good. But listen, man, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Let's stay in touch. Obviously, as time goes by, the picture is going to get a whole lot more clear as to what we're looking at. So
Absolutely.
when the picture does get clear, all the wild cards are announced. Maybe Bob makes a more assertive confirmation one way or the other. When everything starts unfolding, and we know, dog, I'd love to have you back. And
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'll
No,
be
for sure.
I'll
I'd
be
love to be back. Yeah.
100%. And maybe we bring you on. Maybe we bring you on with Marcellus or whatever. We'll think of something. We'll make it special because it's Sheffield, for God's sake.
Or have all
We'll
three of
think
us
of,
on.
or maybe you, Marcellus, and Bob. Yeah, exactly. It's we'll think about it. We got some time, and I'm going to be working the event again, so I'll see you there in person, and we'll keep this thing moving. But thank you, dude. I appreciate you.
Yeah, good to see you again, man.
And for everyone listening, please do subscribe, give us high ratings, and until next time, six pack Lapadat, six up, and we are out.